Ponchatoula, thank you so much for your patience. It has taken us a few minutes here, but we are back live with our special guest, Joel Dicharry with Commission Mankind. And he was just about to tell us about how he and his wife got the brilliant idea to go to Kenya and drill a water well for folks that have never had clean drinking water. So, Joel, first and foremost, thank you for your patience. When we have a small town production like this, you know, it goes from low tech to no tech. And when a tech problem arises, like a poor connection, I'm not the right guy to fix it. So thank you for your patience and your own ingenuity in figuring out how we could get this resolved. If you wouldn't mind, let's go back to the last question and story you were about to tell us. I believe you mentioned Miss Winnie, right?
Yeah.
Winnie actually gave your wife Joy and you the idea for Kenya. Tell us about that and how it came up.
So Winnie has a little store in downtown Springfield that she let us use for kind of a homeschool co-op. And so one of those meetings, the grandmother of one of the kids was actually from Kenya. And my wife came back from this co-op meeting and said, "Joe, I met a woman from Kenya in Springfield." And first of all, I was extremely shocked to think, "Hey, you met somebody from Africa in Springfield, huh?"
Right.
You know. So she said, "Listen, this woman has been trying for 19 years to get water for her village. I think this is something we can do." And so what do we do in the South? We invite people over, we cook some food.
Sure.
So we invited her over, and she came over and she looked at me in the eyes and she said, "Joel," in this deep Kiswahili accent, she said, "Joel, have you ever been thirsty and you couldn't find water?" And that I just was perplexed by that question, because if I'm thirsty, I go get some water. I mean, as a kid, I drank
honestly,
out the whole
we don't have that problem in America. You know, that's tough to comprehend, I would imagine.
So from there, our response was, "I don't know what that's like." And she said, "Joe, imagine your children thirsty and you can't get water for them." And I know you, Parker, if one of your kids was thirsty, you would do anything.
Yeah, well, look, this is minuscule compared to what you're talking about. But when my first son was born, Ponchatoula was then having terrible brown water problems. And it kind of put me on high alert to just the anxiety with is the drinking water we have here safe? You know, we're drinking in it, we're bathing in it. My parents still get brown water at their house occasionally on 7th Street. And but man, to compare that to actual thirst, I can't get a drink. That's, you know, a billion times more serious than what we've gone through here. So yeah, I can't imagine what that's like. And that must have really hit your heart in a profound way.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't have any experience in doing wells. I mean, I've been a project manager in construction most of my life.
Right.
And so, but I told her, I don't
So
know
you're a
what we're gonna
builder
do.
by nature, but you're not a well driller.
Not a well driller. I am
Right.
now.
Yeah,
But
right. Yeah, at
we
that
told
point,
her,
yeah.
"Look, we don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to do something." And so we decided to go and visit. Our friends put up some money to help us get over there. My wife and I went. We brought like 4,000 pencils. Local community donated things. The local
Right.
Chase Bank donated pencils to other people. And we went there, and when we saw the situation there and how dire it was, we realized, hey, we have to do something. And
Right.
we said, you know, if we'll just do what we can, there'll be a lot less that we can't. And so we just kind of took that model and said, well, we don't have the money to go drill a well in Kenya, but we have the ability to go there and to maybe raise awareness and find some help to get water for these people.
Sure. And so is this, am I hearing there are two separate trips to Kenya? There's the initial trip with pencils and other aid to kind of scout out this situation and see what the needs are and what you can do. But that's not the well project that I'm aware of, right?
No, I mean, I had to leave my job. You know, I was a division lead at Lincoln Builders, and you know, so there was some things that had to happen to say, hey, how am I going to support this family of 9 and go and move to Kenya?
Yeah.
So that was a step in its own. But Lincoln Builders has been a great
What's that
organization.
conversation like with your wife? And I guess she's on board from the get-go. She gets the idea first, but how does that go? Because like you say, you're a regular guy. You got a regular guy job. You got 7 kids to support. If you're independently wealthy, I'm unaware of it. Like, how does this kind of, you know, giant decision go over in the home? And what was walk us through that process of how you and Joy came to the decision to go there and do what you did.
Well, for years, we wanted to get involved in missions work and help in somewhere in another country, but so many things you kind of wonder, am I really helping? Is this really a show? And so we kept saying, if we get involved in something, we want to know we're really making a difference. We want to know that this work is needed more than anything. And when we got there and we saw how skinny these kids were at the same age as our kids, and we learned that they can't retain any nutrition because they have chronic dysentery and it flushes all the nutrients out their body.
Right.
So when my wife had been asking me for years, believe it or not, Parker, to go
and while
ahead
we're talking here, Joel, I'm bringing up your
Sure.
website here so folks can see some photos of what we're talking about.
That's
So
right.
and see you there when you talk about how skinny these kids are. You know, the communities you're in, the conditions. You can see shelter right there behind you, right? It looks like it's built with sticks and mud. I'm sorry
That's
to cut
right.
you off, but I know
No,
you're
go
looking
ahead.
at a little iPhone screen and maybe not seeing what our viewers are. But I think a picture's worth 1,000 words. So as you describe this, if you don't mind, I'm going to scroll through some of these photos so they can see it.
Sure.
Please continue.
It was extremely shocking to us, you know, the difference between a healthy kid and an unhealthy kid, and you could see it in their complexion. So my wife had been wanting to travel and do some of this work, but we didn't know where and how to do it. And so she had been asking me for years, hey, we just need to leave your job and go. And I was like, look, if God opens the door, I will run, skip, and jump through it, but I'm not going through any walls. So when this came about, you know, I told my dad about it. I have a great relationship with him. And he said, Joe, this is a horrible idea. You're not going to take my 7 grandkids to Kenya and go live with no power in a village. But, you know, we sat down together, Joy and I, and we prayed and we said, God, if you're opening this door, then you should reveal to the people that we love and love us, such as our parents and others. And I sat down with, believe it or not, right here at PJ's in Hammond. I had a meeting with my vice president. He was in Hammond to do some business. And we sat down and I told him, look, I'm thinking about putting my 2 weeks notice. I want to move to Africa and do this well. And he looked at me and said, Joel, I'm not this guy that goes around the world and does wells. He said, I'm a businessman, but obviously you're called to do this. He said, how can we make this easy? How long will you want to keep the company truck, the gas card, insurance? He said, you take a week and decide how you want to transition. And that's how we're going to do it. I won't tell anybody at the company. And when you come back, you still have your position. So when he said that to me, and I went and I told my dad that, he said, Joe, you have to go. The one who said I had concerns said, it looks like God's really opening these doors. And he did. And that's just the beginning. So God just continued to open doors. And so we just started reaching out, just grassroots through friends and family, and said, look, we're going to go there with the intention of advocating to try to get the government or an organization to help drill. We didn't think we could ever raise the funds to drill one well, being as it's over $30,000 for a well.
Yeah, right.
But through time, we realized that the government there is very, very corrupt. You know, people were walking for hours just to get to polluted water. And we knew this was something that needed to happen. So some friends from right here from Hammond, Michael Turner started a GoFundMe and a fundraiser on Facebook. And we raised like $25,000 in a couple of weeks. And we got the well finished. And so when we finished that well, we began to pray for
So you make trip number 2 back over there.
That's right.
With this new
in January
fund.
of last year.
Okay. So January of last year. So as COVID is hitting the world, right? You guys are, and at this point, 7 kids. And what are the age ranges at that point of your children?
From 3 to 14.
Wow. I remember it well. We're sitting around at the gymnastics right here in Ponchatoula, Cypress Point Gymnastics. I see you there one day. And I think that's when you told me the news that you were heading off to Africa on this trip. Yep. And it was like, holy moly. And then you mentioned the kids were heading with you. It was a family affair. You know, at first I thought, hey, this is Joel, the construction manager, going to take a few weeks off to do kind of a Doctors Without Borders, you know, type deal. But wow, the whole family. And
when we got there, it was tough because we did land there with no power and no water, and we're learning to live with these things. But when people ask me, how did your kids adjust to taking baths in buckets and dealing with the difference in culture and food and things there? And I said, you know, when it's hard to explain here, the paradigm shift that you have when you get to a place like that. But as tough as the things were on my family, when they would look out the window and walk down the road and see the others, we had it way better than any around us. And so that goes into play.
Sure.
We were living way better than others. We had shoes on I couldn't keep shoes on my kids' feet because everywhere they went, they gave their shoes away. So we started carrying a bag of shoes in the van because we would see people with no shoes and my kids couldn't handle that. So we tried to give people an opportunity to give where we could. But our main goal there, when we got there, was to get this water. But when COVID hit, and the government began to lock down in Kenya really hard in March, like the end of March, people that we knew that were doing missions work in Kenya contacted us and said, Joel, y'all need to get out the country. It's going to get dangerous.
Right.
And just so you know, the government in Kenya killed more people than the virus did the first 2 months with baseball bats and other things, just trying to get things under control.
That must have been terrifying.
We weren't near Nairobi. We were way off in the bush, so we're far from a lot of that. But our friends that told us to go, we went home and we prayed and we said, God sent us here to get these people water. If we go home, they're not getting water. So we made the decision to stay, and we locked down ourselves for the first month. And the way we got out of lockdown was the village chief came to us and said, we have people that are dying because their family members that were supporting them are no longer sending support. Can you help us get food? So we took the seats out the van and we began to load the van up with rice and beans and oil and distribute food. And that kind of gave people an awareness that, hey, these aren't tourists. These people are here. They're doing work. And it kind of helped us bridge the gap to getting back outside and continuing to work on the well.
Yeah. Whoa. So what's the kind of feedback you get from kids when you're going through something like that? Because you mentioned the profound paradigm shift from going here with the, luxurious lifestyle we all have here in America, compared to Kenya, to the part with no shoes, and then, to now you're throwing a dangerous lockdown on top of that, with not only the danger of the actual pandemic, but a government response. It doesn't sound right. What are your kids telling you and your wife through this? Because you guys are making some bold faith-based decisions. But, what was that like for your kids? And because you've got old enough kids to really be talking to you about this,
That's
right? It's not just this little ones that you and I watched in the beginner tumble class at gymnastics. The teenagers are there. Tell me, what's the feedback like for something like that?
They realized that this was a serious step, but they were already so aware of the condition of the kids in this community that they were all committed as a family. We would sit as a family and have these discussions. And so they were all committed to saying, hey, we've got to stay here and do this. And honestly, to go and travel an international airport in the middle of a pandemic spreading seemed like the worst idea in the world, to go get in an airplane with people coming from all kind of different countries. I said, it'd be one thing if it was just me and my wife, but me and my wife and a bunch of little children trying to not touch anything in an airport. I was thinking to myself, this is the absolute worst, because at the time they didn't know where this thing was coming and where it was going. I said, we're safest in the village. Now, we got cut off. They blocked off Nairobi on the day I got hit by a truck on a motorcycle. And it was a wild experience. But once they blocked it off, we could no longer go and get supplies like we did. So we had to just live out the supplies of the people in the village. And the Kamba tribe were extremely kind people. So we could no longer go and get the things that we got. But we continued the effort. And it's so amazing that in the middle of a pandemic, people gave the supplies as well, when people didn't have jobs or anything. This was the highlight of COVID, when it was April, May, the end of May. That's when we raised the money to do this. That's when people were locked down and not able to get out. And that's just to show that this is just a miracle. And so many people
that's proof of what a God thing this is, right? And I think you mentioned earlier, does it take about $35,000 to do one of these wells? Is that the right number?
That's correct.
Okay.
That
includes and so bring us through kind
of
the financial journey there, because you mentioned earlier y'all leave for trip number one without the resources to do a well, and you'd give other type of aid. But how much money did y'all have toward this project, say, when you left in January? Did you have $35,000 and everything you need, or were you going there with some money in the faith that more would come in and be donated while you were there? Well, how did that all play out?
Well, I'll just tell you, just a week before we left, I'll back up a little before that. In November of 2019, we had just raised enough money to buy our tickets, which was around $12,000. We sat down with our board of directors and said, we want to buy our tickets. And you looked at people that really influence you a lot in life. One of those people is Pastor Devin Petto and Randy P. Some of these guys. So he needed.
Uh-oh, we're having audio problems here again. Joel, can you hear me? Joel, are you there? Deja vu, everybody. Yikes. I'm so sorry. These tech problems are really getting frustrating for all of us, I know. Joel, can you hear me? You're frozen up on my screen. I can see a still photo, but I can't hear anything. Joel, you there? Oh, looks like he's dropped off. What I want to do here and just take a moment. Hopefully, Joel can get back on. And guys, look, I'm so sorry about these poor connection issues. I just can't do anything but say I'm sorry. Right? It's not something I really have the capacity to fix or influence. But I do think I see Joel getting back on here.
I'm back.
There we go. Yeah, you're back. Okay, I was about to show. Well, you were telling us a story, and I want you to continue. But while we have this up here, why don't you tell folks how they can help? Because we're talking about the impact of the financial contributions people make, and I've brought up your website here, and it's how you can get involved, and obviously prayer, different resources, and finances are such a big part of this. $35,000 a well. We're going to circle back to your story that you were in midstream of, but is the best way for folks to help go into the Commission Mankind website, donating there, or is there a better way to tell us about how we can help?
Yeah, the best way is to go to our website. We can track it best tax-wise. We're a 501c3, so when you give through our website, it makes it easy for us to track it.
And that's commissionmankind.com, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so the 501c3, you guys have to jump through hoops to get that, right? The IRS has to vet you as a true nonprofit. That puts restrictions on you that make sure that this money's not going to waste, right? And of course, I know you and your family, and I've been, minimally involved with the program. So, but for those that don't know you and may just be watching, folks, this is a place you can donate and trust that the money is getting into the hands of the people that need it. This is not folks that are sitting back and living off of these donations, right? And like fat cats. This is going to actual charitable endeavors. So, Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt your story.
There's actually no salary positions with Commission Mankind. So when we started this, there's no salaries paid to anyone in Commission Mankind. So
that's great to know. So tell us about your organization. You mentioned the board of directors. Nobody's on salary. The money's going into these projects, the communities in Kenya and elsewhere. Tell us about how you're organized, and I think folks would be interested in that.
Yeah, we had a local attorney, Jennifer Lee, set up our nonprofit.
Yeah, great lawyer.
Process of building things and
Ponchatoula girl. Jennifer, she and I went to high school and law school together. She and her husband Luke are two of the finest in town.
I got to meet with her tomorrow to discuss some things with it. So I recommend if you're going to start a nonprofit that she's a very, very good source to go through. And my friend James Caracella just started a Ponchatoula-based nonprofit transport ministries.
Neat.
But yeah,
neat.
So
she's a great business lawyer too. So if you have a for-profit business, give Jennifer a call. I can tell you she's sharp. But that's great. So you got in the hands of a very capable attorney who knows how to structure a nonprofit. She's helping you put it together. Who else is involved?
So we have local business, Brian and Kim Walker. So they have
great folks. Five Stones Media. Yeah,
that's right. And so they're involved in it. We have
two of my favorite people,
James and Sherry Harry, Winnie and John Hughes. We have the vice president of Lincoln Builders is sitting on my board, Keith Keller. For the
sounds like few people have had a bigger role in making this happen than that person, right? Allowing you to have the security to make that jump.
That's right. And so we're all local here in this area, and so it's just amazing to see how much money is given from this area. When you were talking about the cost of the wells, one of the things when we went to give our presentations to Smitty's Foundation that gives away donations, they wanted to know, well, what percentage of your donations come from Tangipahoa Parish? And it's high up there. It's 80 to 90% of our donations come from this area. And I think that's this area funded water in Africa during COVID says a lot about the people here. And so,
I'm gonna share the screen here again to show. I don't know if this is current because one of the neat things as we've been preparing for this interview is every few days you're texting me with some kind of great inspiring update to show how more money's coming in. But you can see here, $175,000 goal funds 5 wells for this next round. Is that correct? And you're already over $100,000. So, and you said
that's incorrect.
100% of that's coming from this area. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, that's actually at 175,000. We have 100% hit our goal for the wells, and that
Oh,
money is 100% spent in each village. So if we do a well for say 32,000, then we
uh-huh.
take that other 3,000 and we put it into reforesting the area. We did 20,000 trees in the
So
first
cool.
well area, but none of that
Mm-hmm.
money goes to transporting our family there and back or our food. The money for that
Mm-hmm.
comes from our website when you go to donate. So we set up
Okay.
the well funding separate so that organizations could give. And
Oh,
so we
neat.
had Smitty's Oil funded one. Then
Okay.
Tim Bro with Roof Restored, a local business
Mm-hmm.
here, funded the second one. And then
Okay.
Smitty's came back and said, hey, we want to do another one. And so they funded a
Amazing.
second one, and then a church in Laplace, New Line
Uh-huh.
Fellowship, did another one, and then a man from Covington that I met at First Baptist of Covington, him and his
Mm-hmm.
family have funded the fifth one. So we're
That's
not going to stop at
incredible.
five. You couldn't do
Yeah,
a
sure.
thousand wells
Of
and finish
course.
helping this area. When we left last year from that area, and we were driving to go to the airport, my kids were seeing all of these kids carrying jugs of just old jerry cans dirty and getting water from the ditches. And we realized that we
Mm-hmm.
really hadn't fixed the problem. And so
Right.
until we get some worldwide involvement in this area of Machacos County, we're going to stay in
Mm-hmm.
this area and make sure we get more water. And anyone willing to donate to this, we will put 100% of their funds. We track it all to that water project where it's over 640 feet deep. There's 300 there's 18 330 watt solar panels. There's two
Mm-hmm.
10,000 liter tanks. That first well that we did, the deepest one in that whole region of Kenya, and the government is basing their geological research off of that well.
Incredible. Wow. Well, tell us about the actual project because,
Sure.
we're talking a lot about what it takes to make it happen financially and, with the leap of faith to get there and all. But, you mentioned earlier you're a builder and have been for a while, but you don't specialize in wells. You've never done anything like this before. What went into this? And, this is not like drilling in Ponchatoula or Hammond where you can run down to Gabriel's Supply and get things you need. How did that go about? I mean, how is the actual project of drilling a well go down in a part of the world that doesn't have a hardware store on the corner or all the digging equipment we're accustomed to here?
Sure. Well, most of the resources for Kenya come from other countries. So when you
Mm-hmm.
have to go and get the steel casing to put down 650 feet of steel casing, that has to come in. The drilling rigs, they get imported, and also getting the right contact to a drilling company you can trust is extremely important. And we have a contact with the absolute best, and it was just a God thing. There are so
Mm-hmm.
many that came along that high prices, low prices. When I told this guy to start drilling, I didn't even have the money to do it. He knew that,
Wow.
and he said, "We're going to
Uh-huh.
drill. It's going to come. We're going to get it." And so they just worked together great with us. But when we back up a little bit to, we're going to leave. We didn't have the money for the tickets. Pastor Devin encouraged us to go ahead and get the tickets. We still didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
vehicle out. We're a week away. We're in the beginning of January. We don't even have a vehicle. We're going to land in Kenya with no
Mm-hmm.
American contacts and take public transportation over to this village to go
Yeah.
help them get water somehow. And someone comes to us and says, how much money you need for a vehicle? And wrote a check and handed it to us 3 days before we were leaving. And so that's just
That's
the kind of
amazing.
favor when it's a God project. We get there
Sure.
and we
Mm-hmm.
started working for 5 months, Parker. I worked to try to get the government to help us. They own 5 drilling rigs in that area, but
Mm-hmm.
they're all used for political gain. They're not used to
No.
help the poor people. And so I was going back
So
and forth to
sad.
meet with the government, getting papers signed, and I was just getting distraught. And God
Yeah, I
really
bet.
came to me and said, Joe, you have to do this in love. It's not like a construction project where people would reward me for pushing something through as the project manager or
Right.
superintendent and pushing the pace. It's not the way it works. God said, look, I sent you there to share my love with the world. If you can't do this in love, I don't want you to do it, Joel. And my
Right.
wife
Right.
came to me and said, I really feel like God's going to champion our cause. And about
Mm-hmm.
that time, when we changed our attitude from trying to do it in our own power to just allowing us to be conduits of God's love, people began to give
Mm-hmm.
randomly, just give and provide for this well. And we raised the money that we thought we were incapable of. We had took that first boat for over $1,000 and put it on the shelf and lost it. And we said, well, we know we got to get the government to drill because there's no way
Sure.
we could raise $30,000. And now here
Right.
we are. We raised 175,000 to do 5 wells, and it's not enough to really fully help these people. If people want to do more
Mm-hmm.
wells, we're going to do more. If we're going to get a
Yeah.
drilling rig one day, we'll get it. Water is life. It is the most basic need. And
Sure.
there's nothing you can do greater to help these people than at least start
Right.
with water.
Yeah, it's so true. So true. I want to share one more thing here while we're looking at the website stuff, and that is that you have a store. Anybody who's watching can see that cool Commission Mankind t-shirt that you're wearing. And here, you can go to commissionmankind.com /store and see all kinds of cool gear. I mean, even masks, mugs, bags, you name it. But that's another way folks can help out in a small way if they can't, donate a sizable amount of money and share the cause and the name of the project. This is so cool. You mentioned the role of faith in all this, and obviously, the story you've told is littered with one leap of faith after another. Tell us a little bit about your faith journey. Clearly, that's a big deal in your life. You mentioned meeting your wife, I think, through her dad and church, and you were a minister, obviously, which is what brought you up there to Nebraska. But tell us about, if you don't mind sharing it, kind of the origins of, your faith walk and how did you get to where you are today? Because all of us are on a different part of that path. And I think folks could really be inspired about hearing, your faith walk journey.
Yeah, I tell people that my life was so changed this past year in faith. I was raised in a Christian home. My parents were raised Catholic, and so we've been around church and understanding, and I really came to understand Christ as my Savior when I turned 18 and began to read the Bible and understand his teachings and his ways. But just this last year, I would say, Parker, that I had this epiphany of understanding that it wasn't what I could get done for God, but what God could get done through me. And that's when things really changed, that I realized God was telling me, hey, Joel, I need you to love these politicians that are lying to you every day, because who else is going to love them if my own people can't love them? And I was like, God, I don't know how to. You got the wrong guy. I'm like, I'm the get it done guy. I'm not the go and love guy. And God was like, well, how's that working out for you, Joe? 5 months how deep have you gotten? And so there was a change in my life to say, okay, if I can't do this in love, and it's such a simple principle, then I shouldn't be doing it at all. And I don't think there's anything that we can do in life that we can do outside of love and say we're doing it for God. And so for me, I went to Kenya thinking, hey, I have these abilities as a driven person to push and get these things done. But it wasn't those abilities that got the well done. It was my surrender to allowing God's love to flow through me that got it done. And I think if we could ever see who God sees us as, instead of seeing ourselves based on whether our accomplishments or our failures. And I think of the time when Jesus chose the disciples and he picked Peter, and Peter was a fisherman. And I don't think Jesus ever saw Peter as a fisherman. I think he saw him as the rock, the one he built his church upon.
Right.
And we look at people and we would say, okay, you want to be the rock, you need to do this, 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 and this. And Jesus said, just come and follow me. And so I think for me personally, I missed it for 40 years. And like, I just learned this. I just learned this last year. And last year was a time that God was really teaching me some principles in love. And this year we're going back and we're inviting as many people to come with us. We have a lot of local people from the Ponchatoula and Hammond area that will be traveling to Kenya to take part in these missions and drilling these wells. They're going to come to be a part of all this. Stacy Smith from Smitty, she's coming. She wants to come see these wells we're doing. So people are excited about this. So now, since God has been teaching me how he works with me in love, he said, now, Joel, you have to lead these others in that same love that I led you in. So I'm excited. We're telling people, if you want to come to Kenya and be a part of seeing these wells drilled, just provide your airfare and we will provide your food and room and board and transportation there, because it's so important to us to see people connected to something that's so real. It'll change your life.
What an opportunity. And it's clearly changed your life and it's changed your whole outlook on life. Tell us more about that. When are you going? How do people get involved? If anybody's watching that wants to do that, how can they contact you to initiate it, and give us a rough, the timeline so they can kind of know, because you just gave us your story and giving your boss a little notice on when you'd be leaving town to do this. If somebody else is willing to follow you, when would that be and how do they do it?
Well, the best way to get a hold of me is info@commissionmankind.com. That's info@commissionmankind.com. And I respond to that email regularly. And so we can start that communication process there. But our goal is to leave the end of March and to be there through July. And so if you, and that's just the first trip. I believe with all my
that's
heart
just
that
the
more
next trip,
people,
not the last trip.
that's right. More people are going to provide for more wells. And I'm really hoping that we can raise $750,000 and buy a drilling rig. You
Wow.
can't go wrong drilling for water here. It's only going to save
Yeah.
lives. And so if you want to be a part of that, you just contact me. We'll get together. We're starting a team so that even when we're in Kenya, we have a Commission Mankind team here that can help walk you through the process of make sure you get a passport, the visas, what's needed with COVID and travel and vaccines. And actually, Kenya is a very safe place to travel. I can just tell you that as I brought 4 young daughters there. And I took care of them. So if you say you want to go, or you have a child that wants to go and you have concerns, let me tell you, I took my 7 children there. I didn't have any problems. So there's not any
as we
wars.
shared earlier, you have pictures to prove it. You know, you guys
That's right. That's right. There's plenty of pictures on the website, and Facebook has been an amazing place, even with this interview and the opportunity to get online. In Kenya, we're unable to upload a lot of videos because of the bandwidth. But
if you think we had Wi-Fi
live
problems earlier in Ponchatoula getting the show going, imagine if you were in this village in Kenya. Totally different story. But you're right. Eventually, you get those photos back here, and you're able to share them. Check out the Facebook page for Commission Mankind. Check out the website, commissionmankind.com. You're going to be moved when you see these photos. And, you know, you go around, play in there, see all the good work they're doing. A picture's worth 1,000 words. Joel's told us a compelling story here today, but I think you'll be moved if you see the photos and the realities of the conditions these folks are living in. And it's going to give you a much better concept of what good you can do. Let's talk about lessons learned along the way. And you shared probably the biggest one, which is your faith walk and the revelation you've had in the last year through this project. But what other lessons have you learned through this project? And, you know, what would you like to share with folks in that territory?
One of the biggest lessons I learned that
Uh-oh.
Am I back?
Yeah, and I can hear you once again. Your photo's frozen, but I just heard you say, "Am I back?"
Can you hear me, Parker?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go for it. Joel, you there?
That Wi-Fi is not.
We both learned some tech support lessons here, haven't we? It's a shame Brian and Kim Walker, they build great websites. So they have one angle of tech down pat, right? But our friends can't help us here with bad video connections. We have to find a tech support person. But we were talking about lessons learned. I think you're back with me, Joel. I think I can hear you now. Would you mind restarting that answer and sharing that with our viewers?
Sure. The biggest lesson for me that was learned was that we all have something to offer in this. Some of us, it's going to Kenya. Some of us, it's giving. We saw people in Ponchatoula step up. We went to build a house for a widow. We had no money, and Colleen Edmond, we didn't even know her. She said, "Look, I want to help."
What a great story! That's so neat. Colleen Edmond, folks know, is the owner of Palo's over there with Chef Palo and Andrew Edwards, and the wife of Tom Edmond, Jannie King. One of the finest women in this town. She does so much for charities. But tell us about the project you guys had going and how she got involved. That's a great story.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just amazing that everyone has a different level of stepping up. Some levels it's being able to pay for this home for the widow. Some levels it's being able to pay for a whole well. Some levels it's just to make a connection to someone that can help. Someone started a shoes giving where kids brought their change, and we bought over 1,000 pairs of shoes for children with just people collecting change. And I think we all have something to offer. For some of us, it's just different. And I think the idea that you say, well, maybe Joe, I don't have something that I can bring to the table is a false idea. And what I've learned, even my accountant said, "Hey, Joe, can you just come talk to this Bible study group in Covington?" For him to just give that opportunity for me to speak got us the fifth well. And so your part might just be inviting and say, "Hey, Joel, maybe you can come share with me." But we all play a part. And if we just do what we can, there will be a lot less that we can't. And that's the
Yeah.
biggest lesson that I've learned, is that there's no one that offers more or less. We all have access to the same Christ within us.
Hmm.
And so our abilities, what actually comes out, is all part of his plan. And just you
Yeah.
having me on these interviews and others that participate, we're all in this together. There's a Kenyan proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
That's great. Yeah. How profound. What wisdom. Hey, you mentioned that. One thing everybody watching now or later, because most of our viewers don't watch live, they watch us recorded on Facebook at some point. But you can click that like button. And more importantly, you can click that share button and you can comment, hey guys, check out Commission Mankind. And you never know who that'll hit, because your friends have friends, and this can go viral. And imagine the good you can do, 100% free, close to no effort, close to no time. Just hit click, and share this, and you just don't know what good you'll do. And of course, we hope you do more. If you can afford to donate, donate. If you can afford to go. What's more important than that, But we all have some element of what we have to give, and nobody, has nothing there, right? I mean, just your attention to this cause and the energy it takes to watch, as minimal as that might be, is something you can give. So I love your approach to that, Joel. If you could go back in time to young Joel, whether we're talking about, the young man before you got married, or a year ago before you went on this journey, what advice would you give yourself? Or similarly, if somebody is thinking about getting involved in a project like this, or thinking about heading down a path similar to the one you've described that you've taken, what advice would you give?
I mean, the absolute first thing that comes to my mind is doing things in love. And, some people would just say on a project, oh, well, that's just Joel, and he's going to be that way till the end of this project. Well, what if people said, hey, that's just Christ-like? And so for me, that's been the biggest thing. I wish I could go back and change, and saying that the things that the world seemed to reward in my life were not the best traits. What if people knew you as not your personality faults, but the good things? And so,
Right.
and I don't think that I'm a bad person by any means, but I still think that doing things in love is a different approach. And so that seems to be the biggest thing. If I could go back and change things, I would change things to make sure that anything I would do it in love. I would give myself that advice. And anyone thinking to get involved in doing this, and starting a nonprofit, or going to be a part of something, if you have that idea in you, there's passions in each one of our hearts that we like. Like Parker, you like baseball. There's a passion in you
Right.
there that was there from the beginning. And I think if we could see what God has given us passions for, and just get involved in those things, don't ever think that someone has a better gift or less of a gift. Don't think, oh, if I had that bankroll, or if I had that ability. We went to Kenya with no money to do well.
Yeah.
And we're doing more. So don't think that it's your ability, and God uses all of our abilities, but it's not your ability that gets it done. It's your ability to
Right.
surrender to Him,
Sure.
and seeing Him do it that gets it done. And our trust grows in God when we pray for things, and those things happen. And
Yeah.
so I think if you have vision for these things, the name Commission Mankind started in 2009, and we didn't go to Kenya until 2019. It was 10 years of knowing that we
Right.
wanted to get involved and didn't know how, and we prayed and we wrote things down, and we just had to wait till God opened the doors. So if you have a thought like that, just continue to pray. God will open the doors, and the doors that were open, Him bringing somebody. We could have never found this village on a map if we tried, but this
Right.
woman came from Kenya to Springfield,
Yeah.
Louisiana,
God
and
placed her in your life at the
that's
right
it.
time and right place.
That's it. It was just, there was no way that we could have set that up. So don't think that it's your ability that gets it done. Understand
Yeah.
that it's your ability to surrender to God that gets it done.
That's great advice. And I can't tell you how much I admire you and Joy and all of your family and your organization. You're doing great things, and you're making Ponchatoula proud, because, you're revealing the best part of this community. You said it earlier. People were giving most when times were the toughest, when they were out of work, when the pandemic was at its height, when the uncertainty was at its peak. This community stepped up and gave what it could. And look what great things happen. People that have never had clean water now do. And now 5 more wells and counting are coming soon. And
That's
that's
right.
just the beginning. You know, you are a young, vibrant 40 and ready to roll and keep going. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come share this with us. I want to thank you for your patience in enduring umpteen tech issues and bad connections. And to the viewers, gosh, thank you guys. I know this has not been the most seamless or enjoyable viewing experience, but it's an important, maybe our most important interview yet. So Joel, with that being said, what else would you like to share with our viewers as we close? Anything else? We're here with Joel. Commissionmankind.com is the place to go and learn and donate and help in any way you can. But Joel, anything else you want to share as we close?
I want to say thank you, number one, to the people of this area that have given to provide for our family, because we took this step of faith and moved out. We had no guarantee of income, no guarantee of monthly funds coming in. And we were in Kenya thinking, hey, we're going to have to plant some tomatoes and potatoes and some things because we're going to have to survive here. But people continued to give to us, and there was no guarantee. And we're buying tickets probably next week to go to Kenya. We've got to raise $24,000 to cover all of expenses to travel there and to travel back. And we haven't raised that yet. So if you want to get involved, you can get involved with that. But we're not worried because God always provides our needs. And if you're interested in getting something started, don't let the finances or how big it is matter to you. Don't let those things discourage you. If you'll just do what you can, if we all do what we can, there'll be a lot less that we can't. Because doing that well in Kenya, I didn't succeed with getting the government to do it. But when I surrendered to love, the people of the community came together and we got this well done.
Yeah. So well said. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story. It's a compelling one. To our viewers, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back here next week and hopefully with fewer tech issues. I thank you for your patience, your attention, and please click the share button, click the like button, comment, tell us what you think. I'm sure Joel would welcome your input on how he can take this up yet another notch and improve it even more. So please get involved. I think